Hello again, and it is Star Wars month. So for today, we are going to be delving in the first Star Wars commentary of about 22. There will be lots of things to discuss. However, it's time to break down what Star Wars means to me and why I am dedicating an entire month of my channel to non-stop Star Wars subjects. So we got to start with my early childhood history and, the first time I saw Star Wars. I believe I was around the age of 5. It was like slightly after the special editions came out, and I saw those on VHS, and for some reason the VHS of A New Hope had a preamble to it. It was kind of like a little behind-the-scenes look at this, at this film that I was about to watch and explaining the various changes. And for some reason, I have that documentary burned into my brain even more than, the preceding films that followed it, because it was just so fascinating to break down live-action feature filmmaking in this way. And this is what got me invested in Star Wars initially. It was this brand new world with these lifelike characters that weren't only just human, but there were aliens and there were robots and there were these, white-clad bad guys and this, just powerful visage of Darth Vader. And I saw those movies and I loved them and I couldn't stop watching them. And then The Phantom Menace came out, and I was the perfect age of 6 years old to go see that, so I ate that up. I ate up Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. But in between those movies, I discovered the Star Wars Expanded Universe. At first through the Young Jedi books and the New Jedi Order books, following that. Then with the Jedi Apprentice stuff that follows Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Xanatos. Then the Obi-Wan and Anakin books that kind of tied up that series. And then the Star Wars Republic comics came to my hands. In the Jedi Council Acts of War arc, in that book, the Stark Hyperspace War, and then the overall Quinlan Vos and Aayla Secura stories that were written by John Ostrander and drawn by John Dersema. And these were the stories that filled up my childhood. And then smash cut right before Revenge of the Sith in 2003, after Attack of the Clones, to the Genndy Tartakovsky Star Wars Clone Wars cartoon. And at that point, I was getting my friends who were not into Star Wars, saying, "Dude, you gotta watch this Star Wars cartoon. It looks just like Samurai Jack." And oh man, I was just so enamored with Star Wars. And I had ass ton of figures, dude. Starting my very first figure, I believe, in that same year of 98 with the Power of the Force line. This super roided Star Wars 3 3/4 figures. I had the non-roided Ben Kenobi, which was the best looking Obi-Wan at the time. And you could take the plastic off and he had tan pants and brown boots, and they still had the long sleeves from the robe. And dude, that was my favorite figure at the time, bar none. I don't even know why I gravitated towards Obi-Wan Kenobi, and now that I'm older, I do. It's because I loved following that old man character through his entire life in the prequels. And so when you get to him when he's older, it's like seeing an old friend. And that was before those movies even came out. I was just so mystified by the idea of the old master and where he came from and who he was, so that when, the prequels, more than just being a story of how Anakin Skywalker falls to the dark side, it's the story of how Obi-Wan Kenobi goes from being this kind of arrogant apprentice who, doesn't really agree with the way his master views the Force, into his own Jedi and making his own decisions and being a gallivanting Jedi Knight across the galaxy, and then into a wizened Jedi Master who is faced with some of the toughest choices any senior member of any order could ever make. And, this is the Star Wars that I grew to fall in love with. And then, the George Lucas, Dave Filoni Clone Wars came out, and those were pretty fun, and I loved them for the fact that both me and Dave Filoni share a favorite character that I will get into in 3 days after this video. And so that cartoon kind of wrapped up. And then the announcement came, and I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing at the time. I was just kind of on my phone in the kitchen, and my roommate comes into the kitchen of our apartment, and he's like, "Dude, Disney just bought Lucasfilm. It's over. It's over." And then we watched my completely unedited cut of Episode 4, New Hope, and Empire, and Return of the Jedi as his celebration for the death of Star Wars, and his more in memoriam take on it. And for me, I was just so shell-shocked, and seeing all those photos of George Lucas with Mickey Mouse Jedi and signing the papers with Bob Iger, those give me visceral, fucking angry feelings now as a result of, what has come since. And what came since was, on my end, an initial very hesitant reaction to just overall vitriol in 2014 when they announced the death of the expanded universe into creating it into the Legends brand. And I'm like, my God, I haven't even gotten into the video game side of Star Wars and shit. So I'm expecting this to be a very long video as it stands right now. But yeah, just all those video games, comics, books, even some of those toy lines, like with Clone Wars, like with Shadows of the Empire, like with the original Kenner expanded toy waves. It's just all of this is gone now. What does this mean for Star Wars? And I will get into more of the emotional impact as we keep going, but I really want to continue the timeline of 2015, man. 2015, a year that had nonstop amazing science fiction films about artificial intelligence, like Ex Machina, what I was thinking was the Ultron plot in Age of Ultron that's now kind of phased with me. I just thought it hit in the zeitgeist at the right moment. And with all of this crazy science fiction, man, I was just I wonder what Star Wars will be up to. And they did that same kind of slow burn, slow reveal of what was in this movie. And, you got the John Boyega spook face and the guy in the woods with his crossguard lightsaber, which we only saw in the EU. And that shot of the Falcon that every fucking retarded dork went nuts for, that I was just oh, okay. And then the second trailer came out with Celebration 2015. And I think I was getting more and more excited at the time. And then the final one hit. And I was in my apartment with a friend of mine. And we saw that trailer. And I called up to get tickets as soon as possible at the biggest IMAX, the real IMAX that is fortunately still standing in my area right now, that is one of the best in the country. And I remember going to see it in costume and shit and being super excited. And then the movie played. And it was, it was The Force Awakens. It was a carbon copy pasta version of A New Hope with all of these non-essential elements in the plot. And it ended where it did with, the world's worst cameo of Luke Skywalker in existence. And I couldn't have been more mad. I got into extreme verbal arguments with people over my just hatred of The Force Awakens. And it was bad. And then Rogue One came out, and it was pretty good. It was just pretty good. And I was like, okay, maybe they can do this right. And then The Last Jedi came out. I was cringing nearly all the way through it. And then sometimes just because of I believe the spectacle of sitting down in a movie theater, I was like into all those subversive things, except for, the obviously bad one of Luke Skywalker throws his father's lightsaber over his shoulder and walks away. Like, that to me was a really big fuck you. It was about as big of a fuck you as, why does Han Solo not have his ship, the Millennium Falcon? Like, when I saw that in the second trailer for The Force Awakens, I thought that meant, like, oh, we just came back from a really big mission and we weren't able to use our ship like in Return of the Jedi, so, oh yeah, we're home. And then it's just, like I throw out to the audience, like, yeah, we're home. Welcome back, Star Wars. And no, it was not. And, and it took longer for me to realize how shitty Last Jedi was compared to the easy, like, yeah, this is a copy-paste reboot of Star Wars, essentially. Or a remake of Episode 4, A New Hope. And this is where we are at now with Star Wars. We are at this impasse where the movies are just so shitty that I didn't even see Solo, and I'm not going to see the Rise of Skywalker coming out in just under a month. And I don't know who to blame for this shit, but I do know that despite all this, I was watching Rebels whenever I could. I jumped off Resistance because that started when the Last Jedi backlash kind of nearly started to kick off, I believe in 2018. Or no, that was well after. Yeah, shit. And yeah, it just was an abysmal experience to be a Star Wars fan last year. It was like, you're gonna meet this guy in in tomorrow's video that is a diehard Star Wars apologist, and I don't know why I constantly like goof on him for still loving Star Wars, other than the fact that it's, again, this like Eric Butts mentality of don't ask questions, just consume product and get excited for next product. But he's at least self-aware to know that, like, the employees kind of fucking hate him and everything he stands for. And I think that's what really exacerbated my hatred of Disney Star Wars, is just the corporate disrespect of people who helped keep this franchise so afloat that they were able to coast into these giant positions of power within Lucasfilm. And now they just, like, have the audacity to call us fucking man babies and all this shit. It's like, no, dude, you can go fuck off and I'll take my money elsewhere into other franchises. And that's what I've done. I've essentially kind of sworn off Star Wars, admitted that I'm a very anti-Star Wars partisan right now, and, if The Mandalorian continues to be even just remotely as good as it is right now, I think it will heal a lot of the wounds that have driven people apart from Star Wars. But for me, I think you're going to have to do better than just one fucking television show, Like, you're going to have to make more concessions to fans of the Star Wars Legends, the Star Wars Expanded Universe. You're going to have to wrap up some of those stories. Like, how does Luke Skywalker die in that universe if Luke Skywalker has the most embarrassing death in our universe, and same with Han Solo and potentially Princess Leia come December 20th. And this is where we are with Star Wars now. And what Star Wars really means to me is it was a thing that helped me gain a lot of friendships, a lot of, camaraderie between me and new people, that being like, oh, you like Star Wars too? Like, awesome. And now it's this thing that I have this very strained relationship with. And it's unfortunate, and it really kind of makes me sad that I don't have the same love for it that I used to. And it's because certain people had to get what they wanted out of it. Kathleen Kennedy had to get her little forced diversity agenda initiative out there. Bob Iger had to maintain his bottom line but, not listen to the man who made it the franchise that it was, and instead listen to this complete retard who doesn't know her own tits from, like, her shoes. And, day 3, I will talk a lot about J.J. Abrams and why I truly do hate him more than Rian Johnson, because he is a hack and a clown. And it's like, you gave this beloved franchise to a guy who only understands it from, like, an analytical perspective. Like, he doesn't understand it from an emotional perspective. Everything he tries to do with it in an emotional perspective is just lifting from the old movies and putting it in his movie and calling it a day. It's nothing new. It's nothing original. It's nothing fresh. It is reheated microwave fucking retreads when it comes to the feelings and the emotions behind the story. And as a result, we have an inferior product that no one is excited for with The Rise of Skywalker. There is so much more hype and anticipation around the next episodes of The Mandalorian than there is for The Rise of Skywalker, the final film in the Skywalker saga. Again, if you're coming to this channel for the political shit, I'm sorry I'm going to be doing this, but this is my way of closing this chapter in my life that, really helped me come out of my shell from being just like this quiet kid with Asperger syndrome into this loud, boisterous, vociferous fucking personality that I am now. And I just want to give it the send-off it truly deserves after the mismanagement of the people currently in charge. So, in conclusion, it really pains me to say this, but this entire Star Wars month, including this video, is just my way of coping with the fact that Star Wars has been long dead to me, and I want to move on so that I can grow and be a better person, a better creative. And, maybe when they get the right people in charge for the franchise, I will hop back on. But until then, man, Lucasfilm, fuck, you better tread lightly, because I'm coming for you.